what you love and the money will follow, right? Not exactly, and it didn't work that way for my guest today. She was young, loved yoga, and decided to start a yoga studio in Hanoi, Vietnam. Despite being a great yoga teacher, she struggled so much that 2 years later, she shut down her studio. Hello and welcome to Season 6 of the Womenpreneur Asia podcast, and I'm your host, Krista Gun. My mission is to uncover the stories and strategies of Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia to help you as you navigate your own business journey. This episode is brought to you by Redbox Studio. Today's episode is with a Vietnamese entrepreneur, Milena Nguyen, and Milena's story is about tasting failure at a young age when her yoga studio closed after 2 years. In her own words, everything looked great from the outside, but inside she was struggling with anxiety, insecurity, and depression. She couldn't even pay herself a decent salary. Milena took that lesson of failure and decided to bet on herself a second time. Today she is in a very different place and a much smarter and successful entrepreneur because she says she finally has created a business that serves her best. You will love today's interview as we discuss entrepreneurship from the perspective of inner and outer journeys. We spoke about permission and transitions, and that entrepreneurship is learnable and why women should own their own brilliance. Enjoy today's conversation. Hi Milena, welcome to Womenpreneur Asia.
Hi Krista, thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So Milena, where are you today?
I am in my home. Actually, I'm literally sitting in my balcony, and my home is based in Kuala Lumpur. So we are based in the same country.
But you are not from Malaysia, are you?
No, I'm not. I guess a lot of people could tell from my last name. So I am a Vietnamese. I was born, raised, educated in Vietnam. And I just have the luck to been work and travel in many different countries. And now life brought me here.
And how long have you been in Malaysia?
I started living here right before the lockdown. So in how many years is that? Lockdown happened in 2019, right? 2020. So I started living here since March of 2020 until now, and I really enjoyed it.
So do you often go back to Vietnam?
I have not been back to Vietnam ever since March 2020, actually. But we are looking forward to go there with the baby for the Lunar New Year. And it was a very interesting period because the lockdown happened, and a month after the lockdown, me and my partner discovered that we were pregnant. So, and everything happened during pandemic. We got pregnant, we delivered, and now our baby is almost 2 years old.
So you really had a baby during this 3 years.
Yes, a baby during pandemic and so many transitions in personal life.
Okay, we will definitely love to get into your transitions and how you've been moving from place to place and living your life and running your business. So the first thing that I always like to know is, okay, maybe let's get a backstory if you can. Tell us, what business are you in? But before that, were you always in business?
I have always been in business, actually. I started first working in NGO ever since I was in university, and I worked for that. It's called AIESEC. It's like one of the world's biggest NGO for youth leadership. I worked there for 5 years, and at the end of my NGO experience, I had an option to go to work in a corporate, and I just didn't. So I started my business right away when I was 24 years old. I failed, and we'll get into that failure story at some point because that was a good story. I failed and I start again, and that led me to my current business. So it had been 6 years since I started this business, and I am a coach. I have a coaching business, and been very grateful that the work has chosen me and it led me here.
And is it common for Vietnamese women to always be so entrepreneurial? Because I've spoken to a number of them, and I feel that every Vietnamese woman seems to have this passion for business.
Mm-hmm. It can be. It really depends on which angle you look at it, because of the historical context of Vietnam, right? We were so many years in war, and during wartime, of course, all the men went to fight the war, and all the women at home. and women are there. We had to raise. So the my grandmothers and her mothers with the generations of women have to stay back and find a way to raise children and have something on the side. So I still remember both of my grandmother on my mom and dad's side had their own shop. So that was like entrepreneurship in that sense, like the resourcefulness that women had to, like they didn't have a choice. They had to find a way to be resourceful, to be able to support their family while their husband is like off fighting the war and coming back very injured, if not physically, then mentally from war. So I think that is where the resourcefulness come in Vietnamese women. But on the other side, when you look at it, it's also a very patriarchal society where women is conditioned to be is socialized to be a nice girls and following expectations, taught that you need to be a mom and get married and go to good school, like all of that very traditional roles of women. So I feel like there could be a lot more a female entrepreneur if women, especially the new generation, have the support they need to break out of these roles and these expectations and free themselves to pursue what truly matters to them.
And you're one of them who's pursuing something that really matters to you, right?
Yes, yes, I am. I remember I was 24 years old and I just finished my role in AIESEC. That was a really big organization. And I had the privilege to be the first Vietnamese to work for the global executive board of the organization. So when I finished my work, my parent was like, yay, she's going to get a really good job because that looks really good on your CV. But I'm like, I'm going to become a yoga teacher. And my parent was like, you what? What is wrong with you? For some reason, I just could not ignore. I had this inner calling in my heart that I just could not, I cannot not do it, you know? And I feel like a lot of the time when we have a calling, and maybe you can relate to this, when we have a calling, it's not just something we want, but it's something that we cannot not do. So yeah.
So what was that passion? What was the passion for yoga at that young age?
Yes. So I, in a sense, I was successful early, like successful, quote unquote, a more like a traditional types of success, like was promoted early, had a really great title early. I was working in Europe. I was like 22 and 23, and I was already like travel all around the world, working with like Fortune 500 companies, setting up partnership, very big partnership for the organization. And I had that. However, inside, my mental health was so bad. I was young and I had a massive case of imposter syndromes. So everything looked great from the inside, but from the outside, but inside, I was always struggling with anxiety and insecurity and depression. So high functioning depressed. So I remember back then, every day when I was working in Europe, in the Netherlands, every day I would finish my task and check off everything in my to-do list, but I felt so deeply empty and lonely. And during that dark time, it was yoga and mindfulness so yoga, mindfulness, spirituality, and the concept of self-love and self-compassion that helped me through that period of time. So when I finished my job at the organization and was contemplating what would be my next step, I just naturally felt like I want to share what has really helped me with others. And also I've always had an interest with psychology and I'm fascinated with human potential. So that's why I choose to become a yoga teacher. And I started a wellness studio in Hanoi in Vietnam. It was one of the very few spaces that we had back in the day in Vietnam. And that was the reason for that passion. Like when we have used something that helped us so much, it can be a natural thing that we feel like we want to share that same thing with others.
Yeah, that's really a natural progression of where we are and then why we want to share that gift, right? That has helped us with the other people around us. So when you were running your yoga studio, what was it like being one of the very few ones back then?
Yes, and very young too. I remember other people who owned their studio was like older women or men, and I was like 24 years old, yoga, teaching meditation. It was very, how I say, it was a very lonely process. And I think that was a mistake that I made too, that I didn't get any types of support. I had a lot of, I felt like I had a lot to prove back then, like 24 years old and starting my own business. And I wanted to figure out everything on my own. And I had a business partner, but I didn't think about like finding peers or mentor or coaches or support. And I struggle a lot. I really was working with what I was passionate about. I was passionate with what I do, and I put a lot of hard work. Like sometimes I'll teach like 20 classes a week, but only 2 years after I opened the studio, we had to close it. So this is not like one of the fairy tale story, right? Like it is a plot twist. So only 2 years after opening the studio, I had to close it because we were barely getting by. Actually, I told everybody the reason for closing was that I wanted location freedom, which was true, but it wasn't the full truth. The other reason for closing was that we were struggling so much financially that it wasn't sustainable. And at the end, like we were just burned out. And that was like for the 2 years I was running my business, I was able to pay myself like $250 a month. $250 a month for 2 years straight. Like there is a saying that do what you love and money will follow. And I think that is a very dangerous half truth. I did what I love, and I was so passionate. Like, where was the money? It didn't follow me. um, so, and that was like one of my favorite failures. That helped me to learn what I need. Like when I look back, I'm very grateful for it, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have the lesson I needed in order to succeed in the next one.
And that must have been also something quite painful, because you were young and you were excited to do what your heart was telling you to do. But now looking back at it, and with all your years of experience, if you had to do something or restart something like that, what would have been some of your key things that we have done different based on that episode?
Yeah. So the thing that I didn't know was that there is a difference between being a great yoga teacher and running a great yoga business. That is so different. And now we work with coaches, and my second business is coaching. And I always try to tell new coaches that there is a big difference between being a good coach and running a sustainable business. Like there is a very different sets of skill that you need. And I didn't know it at the time. I thought that if I can be just great at teaching yoga, everything would work out, but it didn't. I didn't know how to be an entrepreneur. So that was one thing that I probably, if I could turn back time, I would tell myself. Another thing was so important to have support. Like I didn't even think of talking to other studio owner, for example, to understand like what could be like their potential struggles and what they've learned. I didn't have any mentor. I didn't have coaches to support me. And when we start an entrepreneurship journey, there are so many stuff that come up, right? And now I call that the inner journey. We have our outer journey and an inner journey with entrepreneurship. The outer journey is like, all the marketing, then the strategies and all the sales and all the things that you do with your business, which is important. But there's an inner journey too, like that the things that will come up, like insecurity would come up, imposter syndrome would come up, like all sort of limiting belief, especially limiting belief about money will come up. And I did not know that was a thing back then. So I didn't have the support to look at and unblock myself as I went. And I think that was one of the reasons why I struggle and fail. Right. So if I could turn back time, then I would tell myself to pay attention to the resistance, the procrastination, the fear, and have the support I need to evolve, play the inner journey and do it well. And that is going to help the outer journey to be much easier.
Is it better to focus on the inner journey first if someone wants to start a business?
I think we have to need both, like a yin and yang. It's happening together. So we need the outer journey to allow their inner stuff to come up. So I always say to the coaches that I work with now, and now we support coaches in our business. So we help them to grow a successful business. So I would always tell the coaches that I support that you think you've worked through all of your money stuff, wait until you price your package. You think you've worked through all of your visibility wound, wait until you launch your program. Yeah, you think you've healed your inner issues with worthiness, wait until you need to go out there and tell the world about your mission. Right? So you wait. And I think that is one thing I love about entrepreneurship, because it is really spiritual growth on steroid, like personal growth and spiritual growth on steroid, because so much thing will come up, and it really a portal for personal transformation if you say yes to it.
So tell us about your current and present business where you are helping coaches.
Yeah. So my business has evolved a lot. So after I closed the studio, just to continue the thread of the story. So after I closed the studio, I went through a period of depression, actually, because it was a big failure for me. Like being 24, it was my first business. I put all my heart into it. It didn't turn out how I wanted. It made me doubt everything. I spiraled down through a period of depression. And when I came through that with the support of my life partner at the time, when I emerged from that, there was a few options to go forward with my career. Like the option to go for corporate was still there, but I just couldn't do it. It's just something that I just could not imagine myself working for somebody else's dreams. So I decided to bet on myself a second time, and it was very hard because you fail the first time, and now there could be a lot of doubt, right? Like, can you really do it? But I chose to bet on myself the second time and start my coaching business. So I started out as a coach helping women in relationship. I had a very beautiful relationship back in the day, and I wanted to help women with their worthiness and relationship. And that's how I started. And in the past 6 years, my work has evolved, and now we are a small company of 7 people, and I am the coach, and I have a really wonderful support team. And we have different programs to help coaches, especially new heart center coaches, to grow a thriving business that is going to allow them to make a wonderful living doing their sacred work. And because of that, they will be able to make the kind of impact that they want to make in the world in the most powerful way. So that is our work.
I like how you mentioned heart-centered. Why specifically heart-centered? Because
I think when we start out, we always need to ask ourselves, who do we want to work with, right? And I think for any entrepreneur, like, you're here to serve, yes, but you are not here to serve everybody. So when I ask myself, who do I want to work with, that is the person I want to work with. I want to help coaches who are in business because they have a calling from their heart to do so, not just because they are in it for the money. Like, money is great, money is important, and my work help people to earn a living, but ultimately they need to be here because there is a bigger purpose. So that's why we choose the word heart-centered, purpose-driven, people who are driven by a calling bigger than themselves, and those are the one that I can serve the best.
And what is predominantly the group that come to you and work with you?
There are many women. We do work with men too, so there are a few men in our group, but there are many women, and Asian women. It can be also women of Asian origin that is now living in different continents. And I guess the reason why is because there are many young women too, women who are in their late 20s, like early 30s. And I think the reason why is because they could see themselves in my story, and therefore they feel safe and they feel like they could do it too, with my support. And I think that's why representation matters so much, right? Like, when we put ourselves out there, then the people who look like us feel that they are seen too, and then they will have the courage to begin to pursue their dream.
Do you have any favorite stories of yours from your group of coaches or people that you work with?
Many favorite stories. So a few comes to mind. Like, I cannot mention too much of the identity because for my one-on-one client, I do it confidentially. But I remember the story of a client who was working in Fortune 500 company, and then she decided to follow her path and become a coach. And so she quit her job she started her own business and then it failed. And then she came back to her work. And when a failure like that happened, it caused a certain wounds, right? And that created the kind of self-doubt that she felt like she's not meant to do it. And then, but still she could not do it. Like what I say, like when we have a calling, it's something that we feel like we cannot not do. When she came to me, she shared about this, she shared about her issues, and ultimately the dream is to quit her jobs and to be able to focus fully on her business. However, what I always say to people who are looking for this is that don't think of it as a leap. Think of this as a transition. So often we feel like in order to pursue what we're passionate about, we have to quit. Like, and I have to quit now. But that might not necessarily the smartest things for you to do, because quitting now can cause like some financial stress, right? It is a big shift in your lifestyle. So the better thing to do and the smarter thing to do might be to go for a transition. So that is the majority of my clients go for a transition. And when it's almost like giving yourself permission to stay in the job for as long as you need, while making the time and the effort to work building your business on the side. And that is great too. And you don't have to pursue these Hollywood versions of like, you quit your job and then you sleep in your car for 5 months and then you create this like multi-million-dollar company, or like go back to your parents' garage and then, it doesn't have to be like that, right? That is the Hollywood version of entrepreneurship. But for many of us, to force ourselves to do that is going to create so much fear that will block us altogether. So if we give ourselves the permission to do it the easy way, the gentle way of you can stay at your job for as long as you need, and you can still consider that as, be grateful for that, because that is giving you the financial resources you need. And at the same time, you carve out the time to grow your business. So that is what my client did. And step by step, she grew her coaching business. She started having clients, and she already started making an income, like a sustainable income, for 3 to 4 months. And when she decided to hand in the notice and transition. So, and that period of time was taking her like almost 1 year. But that was the 1 year that wasn't like before, when she was just like feeling very miserable in her job. Because now it's not just she feels stuck in the job, she was actively working on what she deeply cared about. So I think that is one of my favorite story. And there was many similar story like that with the people I work with, where it's not necessarily like the leap or the glamour or like the shocking shift. It is a gentle, gradual process of transitions with the right support. And I feel like a lot of us can give ourselves permission to do that too. And I believe that for many of us, if we give ourselves the permission to do that, change can happen now, right? We cannot take the leap now, but we can start the first step in our transition now. And
Yes.
in that sense, we can start changing from today.
That's a really good piece of advice, because a lot of people who are presently working or have a job often feel that they need to do something drastic. It's either the job or no job.
Yes.
Or they have to quickly find something that they can build a business when they quit the job. And so there's a lot of stress. And also if you're with your family, with your spouse, that could also be stressful, because for a good number of months, you may not be bringing in anything because you're slowly building up your foundation and your marketing.
Yes.
I like your approach and I like your advice. So it gives them baby steps to try.
Yes. So I feel like for some people, burning bridges and taking the leap might be their way. And I'm not saying that is not right. But for many, it isn't. Right? Especially if you have a family to take care of, if you have children. Pressuring yourself to do that isn't kind, I believe. It's not so kind. So like taking the baby step and mapping out a transition is might be the smartest path to go for.
And for yourself, When you first started your coaching business, what was it like in the early days? If you could rewind and think about 6-7 years ago.
Yes. So I learned the lesson actually after my first failure with the yoga studio. So one of the first thing I did was to get a coach. I knew that there was a gap, and I got humble, and I find like this is something interesting because a lot of people think that there's this myth about entrepreneurship that you are either born an entrepreneur or you are not. I think there's a lot of people believe that, like, you are born Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg or whatever dude. If you're like that, you're born like that, and if you're not born like that, it's not for you. But it's not true. I think there are so many different ways to be an entrepreneur that you can redefine entrepreneurship for yourself. And entrepreneurship is learned. It is absolutely learned. It's so interesting when we look at piano, for example, nobody expects you to like sit down next to a piano from day one and start playing like the Beethoven. Right? There is not real. Like, that you need a teacher, that you need to play the scale, and maybe you will suck for a while. You'll be like playing piano and everybody's like covering their eyes, their ears down, or violin, like everything, even like riding a bicycle. You need someone to be there to help you. Like, and you're gonna fail. So there's this myth that you're either born or not. And secondly, there's another myth that like you're born and you can just do it, right? Or that it cannot be learned. Or people tell themselves that I'm not born to be an entrepreneur or something like that. Is this not true at all? You can learn for sure how to create a business that serves you best. And so anyway, backtrack. I got a coach, and I'm very grateful for the coach that I had. So I could learn. I really focused a lot on the business side of things. Like I no longer only focus on becoming a good coach. I've invested a lot on how to grow a sustainable coaching business, which means like, how can I enroll client effectively? How can I market myself in a way that feels good and authentic for me? How can I create content that speaks to the heart of my ideal clients? Like, how can I take care for the cash flow and the finance of my business? So so many different skills that we need to hone as an entrepreneur. So that was the early day, learning a lot, really like betting on myself and investing in my growth. Because I feel like women can have a hard time doing this. For some reason, I think I know the reason though. I work with a lot of women, and I feel like women can have a hard time investing in themselves, because I believe the reason is that deep down, we were raised by a patriarchal culture that taught us that we are worth less than men. And so if you're worth less, then you don't have the confidence to invest in yourself, because it seems like you don't have what it takes to make the most out of this investment. It's like on the stock market and your name is not like listing on very high. You don't look at yourself and you're like, not worthy of a good investment. So there is something around like investing in yourself and like really believe that you got what it takes to make the most out of 10 times this investment that I really need to change. Like, it was a mindset shift that was important for me to change. And so I really dared to invest in myself with opportunity that feels right for me, like not in like every random thing, but in opportunity that feels right for me in my own education and my own training. And that was the most profitable thing that I could have done for my business. Because as business owner, we are the biggest asset, hands down, right? For sure. So when we invest in the right opportunity for ourselves, the business, then the money flow back in the best way possible.
And what were some of the memorable moments during those early days for you? Besides getting a coach, of course, and investing in yourself.
Yes. So one memorable moment. So I was just still figuring out, right? And I remember started a group coaching program. And back then my money mindset was like, I wasn't good. I would just say that I still have very limiting money mindset. And I really struggled to charge what I was worth there for so many different reasons. And I still remember it was a group coaching program for 12 weeks, and I charged $38. And I was just so scared of charging $38. So I was like in the call and talking to one of the potential students, and I quoted $38. And then the person said yes. And after that, I had to go to the balcony and I was like, oh my God, $38. And then I had to go and take a cold shower. And I was like standing under the cold shower. I was like, oh my God, $38. And it was so funny. So to look back, because that was the inner journey that I was still trying to figure out, right? I had such a huge money block, and money triggers so many things for me that I just could not charge an amount that is fair and would be sustainable. So yeah, that was one of the interesting stories. That was a fun moment for me.
And what has happened since then? I'm sure you have grown in your money mindset, and you have grown a lot more in the last 7 years. So now I think probably your rates and your charges are definitely a lot much better and much more reflective of your value.
It is. Yes, it is nowhere near that. I was just saying. It's not even close to $38. But I think that money, especially for heart-centered entrepreneur, money is a big topic right there, because there is just a lot of issues. Like we can be raised to have a lot of negative association with money, like money is dirty, money is bad, like charging money from having people is wrong, like heart-centered people, especially people in the helping space, like coaches, healer, we could feel that like somehow charging money for our work is put a huge stain on our good intention of helping people, which is all limiting beliefs that we need to work through. So I have, with the support of coaches and also with my own inquiry, and I pay very close attention to the thought that I tell myself, that I'm able to really break through that money ceilings. And that allows me to be able to charge the amount that feels fair for me, charge the amount that feels like elevating, like when you have a rate that you feels like expansive and elevated, and that this is going to really put you in an energy to be your absolute best, and at the same time offer an amazing opportunity for clients to direct their financial resources to something that truly matters to them. Because humans spend money, right? Every second of every day, everyone spend money. We either spend money on living our truth, or we spend money on coping with the misery of not living our truth. So if your service is giving people an opportunity to invest in making their dream come true, then you're actually helping people to put their financial resources in living their truth, instead of coping with the misery of not living their truth in so many different ways, right? Like, Black Friday just happened a few days ago. The time when we recorded it, Black Friday just happened a few days ago, and a lot of human was coping with the misery of not living their truth there. So I have really shifted how I see money. We just did an event called the Money Mindset Intensive a couple of months ago, which is an amazing experience for our participants. But yeah, so if you, whoever who's listening, if you are an entrepreneur and if you feel like money bring up a lot of like emotions for you, like a lot of resistance, you struggle to charge what you're worth, like you don't know how to charge, like also often I ask coaches, like, how much do you want to charge for your packaging? They're like, I don't know. They freak out. They're like, I don't know. I don't want to think about it. So that is the sign that there's something funny is going on, right? Okay, with your money mindset, and you want to start looking for support and resource to uncover this for yourself and also for your clients too. Because if you are charging the fee that keep you and your business small, and ultimately that is a disservice to the people you are here to serve.
I also love that, because I think that money is not just money and women. I think money and people, they always have this fear of charging. Either they feel that they cannot say the figure that they want to charge, or if they say it, they feel bad if someone just goes silent. So they don't know how to process that. So I think you've hit on a really good point, that I think whether it is coaching or not, but I think particularly in coaching, because like you said, right, it feels like a little bit impure to say that word, that yes, I'm going to charge for this particular coaching that I'm going to deliver to you. I think people have that. I think it's okay if people say, I'm going to sell you a product. I'm going to sell you food. I'm going to sell you, a toy. They're okay with that because they can see it. But this intangibility is something that sets people back. And I think that's a great thing that you mentioned.
And I think I'm glad you brought up women, because I believe that women particularly struggle more. Because we mentioned the patriarchal culture, right? And how women really conditioned to believe that we're worth less than men. Then, of course, we feel less entitled and deserving of asking. So like women have a big issue with asking, right? Whether it's in corporate or like asking for a better pay, asking for a higher position. Like it's same with entrepreneurship, asking for the kind of compensation that's fair. And the compensation in entrepreneurship is basically the price of your service. So then it's all come down to the worthiness here. I do believe that one of the things that I'm seeing my female clients struggle with a lot is that imposter syndrome, that perfectionism. And it's all because there is something inside them that tells them that they are not good enough at the end of the day. Like something inside them are telling them that they are not good enough, that they don't know enough, that they don't have enough experience, that they're basically not enough to be able to do the work they're here to do. And if that is the story that is going on inside you, then you need to question that story. You need to question that story and work to the point of like do the inner journey to the point where you can truly own your brilliance. We're so blind to our genius and our brilliance, right? Like owning your brilliance, owning your genius, like owning your story and your experience, like everything that you've gone through, because that is all the resources and your incredible assets to serve someone who will come to you. Like owning that values and use it to powerfully create an experience, asking for a fair exchange, and also offer your client opportunity to invest in themselves as a powerful way. And then yes, that is how you serve. I think the clients who work with me in all these years, so often clients who work with me, and I do programs like at least 4 months, up to like 6 months and a year. So often at the end, they would say that one of the things they're most proud of is that they have invested in themselves at this level and they have never done so before. And that is just a huge boost in their self-worth also. When you dare to invest in themselves, you are telling yourself that I am worth it, that I am good enough for it. So imagine if you are a coach, if you are offering your own client this experience to invest in themselves, like one day they are going to look back and say that you're so proud of that too. That is a very empowering.
And that because of they dared to make that investment in themselves, they are in a different place altogether.
Exactly. Yes. Women need to bet on ourselves more often. The root of the word entrepreneurship is literally means someone who take a bet. How interesting is that? Someone who take a bet. So like taking a risk, betting on something is just an inherent thing, like the core thing of entrepreneurship. I think for women, we need to be bolder with that.
Totally agree with you. Love how you sum it up. Like, okay, we got to be bolder. We got to take more risk. But take the risk in the baby steps and the way that we feel most comfortable, not just jump off the cliff.
Yes, take a risk that feels aligned to yourself, like that feels it needs to be aligned to you. It needs to feel like this is the right thing to do, and then also take the step. Be kind to yourself during that process too. Give yourself the space to do a transition if that's what you need.
And how do your clients find you? Is it
my clients find
on social?
My clients find me through referrals, so lots of that's going on through social media for sure. So I've been blogging and building my audience for also 7 years. I started that even before I started my coaching business, and I keep a very active blog. So if you want to read my writing, you can go to my website. So there you can find my blog. So that's where my client find me, right? And I often I believe that the universe sent the client to me too, because I'm very unapologetically woo-woo. So I believe that when we are ready, like when we welcome, when we open, when we're ready, and when we're clear who we want to serve, then the universe help us to bring the person to our universe.
I don't think that is woo-woo. I think that is perfectly reasonable and rational, because I think people
Thank
meet
you.
people because of their vibrations. Vibrationally, they connect with each other. And more I believe that, because sometimes you can call it random, but actually it's not really that random.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
Okay, so I just want to know, so what's in the pipeline now for you and your business and your coaching?
Yeah. So I've been really focusing on serving client on a one-on-one basis, like keeping a very boutique practice in the last 6 years. And ever since the beginning of this year, I've had the call to offer my work to more people. So no longer only serving my one-on-one client, even though I still really love that and I'm still doing that. Me and my team, we have been building our flagship program, and we've had founding members run, and also the first enrollment a couple of months ago. So the program is called Impact Coaching Circle. It's an ongoing support and membership and education program for coaches for heart center coaches who want to grow a thriving business so they can make the difference that they're here to make in the world. Yes, so that is the flagship program that we focus a lot in, and now in the time of this recording, it is December like the 3rd, and we are going to do another public enrollment for Impact Coaching Circle probably in Q1 next year, end of January or February. We are still planning, but yeah, that is coming in the pipeline. I'm very excited about it.
So would that mean that you will be reducing any of your one-to-one work, or would that just be complementing your one-to-one work?
That would be complementing the one-to-one work too, because I could imagine a lot of members from Impact Coaching Circle might want to up level and work with me one-on-one. And also a lot of my current one-on-one client, like joining the membership for ongoing support, would be a really best next step for them once their one-on-one program is complete. So it's really complementary, and I've really put the thought into designing my different offer that they actually work together in a cohesive support system for my ideal client.
So it means that they can enter from any service that you offer, whether it is from your Impact Circle or from your one-on-one coaching.
Yes.
So now that we've gone through this, talking about business, talking about yourself, so let's talk about Milena growing up.
Yes.
Where did you grow up? Which city?
So I grew up in Hanoi. It's the capital of Vietnam, and in a very book family, I'll say. Mom's a doctor, dad's an engineer. I am the firstborn girl, and in Vietnam, I don't know if it's similar in other countries, but in Vietnam, it's like such a big blessing to have the firstborn, to be a girl, because the girl will be such a great help. That was me. Like I would often joke that even before I was born, I already had a role to be like the good girl, like the big sister, like the role model for the rest of the siblings and everything. So that was the thing that I struggled most when growing up, because I always have this very, I don't know, rebel, like quiet rebel, even introverted, but like this quiet rebel spirit inside me. But I struggle with having so many expectations. I remember before I was 5, I already knew that I am supposed to go to university, for example, and supposed to be good looking so I can get married to a husband. Like I was quite chubby when I was small, and I remember my mom was putting me on a diet because she was afraid I'd be too fat to find a good husband. So that was something I truly struggled with, to break out from these. And when we were small, we see all of this from the outside, right? And then we internalize. So I had so many people put expectation on myself from the outside, and then I internalized that. And then that became like a big inner critic that constantly pressured me to fit in the role, to be a perfect, be a good girl, basically, to be a good girl. And that was something that I've been like actively working on to free myself from, so that I can pursue my path. I'm not a good girl.
You're an inner rebel.
Yeah, I am the soulful inner rebel.
Yes. And when you were growing up, do you particularly feel that you were meant for other things or bigger
Yes,
things?
that is something that I felt deeply. I always felt that I am meant to do something special, like that I matter in a way. Even though I was like a super quiet kid, I go to kindergarten and I would just play by myself. But I knew that I was meant to have live a very big life. So that was that inner voice that I heard ever since I was small. And then when during that crazy period of early adulthood and whatever that I share, I lost touch with that voice. And then when I came back to myself and found myself, I have been doing my best to listen to that voice every single day, every moment of every day.
When we go back to our childhood, there are so many things in there that can tell us a lot about ourselves. If only we went back and paid attention to those clues that were there from the beginning.
Yes, yes. I agree so much. And I was a maker from the beginning. I make things. I was actually very entrepreneurial. I think it was like 7th grade that my first business.
So you were entrepreneurial.
Yes, I was in 7th grade. And back in the time, manga was the big thing, like this Japanese comic book. And all the girls will be swooning over like whatever manga character that was going on. So I saw a need in the market. So I went and go to the internet shop. Like back then we had internet shop, right? Because not all the house had internet. So I would download these pictures of this manga character on the flash disk. Remember like the flash disk? Like then it was before USB on a flash disk. Take that to the print shop, print it out. And then I take that to the laminating uncle, like the uncle who like have a like laminating machine that he push around in the neighborhood. Laminate that, and I cut a small hole and I put that on a keychain. So I bought that to school to sell. My business was expanding so much. I remember I was sitting in the back of the class counting money. And then I got shut down because I'm not supposed to be selling that at school. Like I was expanding. Even other kids from other classes was going there and then buying my keychain. And then I got shut down. But when I look back, truly, I was entrepreneurial. And so, yeah, it's just like a full circle moment of just coming back to yourself. I think a lot of women tell themselves that they are not entrepreneurs. And then I've had so many the client I've worked with just discover that, wow, they're meant for entrepreneurship. There was a client who felt very stuck in her corporate job. She was like an HR manager in a Fortune 500 company and worked in Europe. And then she thought that she's not an entrepreneur. Then we worked together. We did a lot of unblocking. She moved back to her home country here in Asia, started a business. And now it's like one of the top, like found investors, started a business. And now like the business is like, I cannot reveal, but it's like one of the top app in that industry up until now. And she's still the CEO. So you will surprise yourself if you give yourself a chance. Like you will surprise yourself. Yeah. And that's like the best feeling, like when we surprise ourselves, or when we show ourselves that, wow, we did something that we did not know possible.
And did not know that we could do it, even though it was somehow in the past, somewhere. Yeah. You have to dig it all out again.
Yeah. Yes.
So what are you no longer afraid of then?
I'm not sure if I'm no longer afraid of, but it's more like so there is this fear. I used to be very afraid of like being seen, basically. Fear of being visible. I was bullied when I was in school. So when you were bullied, you as a defense mechanism, the best thing to do is become invisible. If nobody see you, nobody can give you trouble. So I was bullied back in school, and I struggle with visibility, letting myself be seen, like just putting myself out there. I don't know if I'm no longer afraid of that. There might be still fear, but I've just befriend with that fear and then just embrace that. And maybe I've just done it afraid so much that I'm just used to it. So if I think putting yourself out there is a skill, important skill for entrepreneur too. If you don't put yourself out there, then how can your clients know about you, know about your service, know about your message, right? So that is important. And if anyone who are listening to this fear of being judged, fear of being vulnerable, you don't have to make the fear go away. You can just embrace that and let yourself do it afraid. And that build your courage muscle to show up more and more.
I also like that. Do it afraid.
Yes.
Do it afraid.
Just do it afraid.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done?
It might not be business related, but it's related to my personal life. So I was 29 years old and I decided to have a divorce. So that was, I was 20, I can't remember, 28 or 20. Yeah, maybe 28. I cannot remember anymore, but I decided that it was the time for me for the relationship that I had with my ex-husband to evolve. It wasn't because something happened. It was the time for the relationship to shift. Like the marriage wasn't the form that was suitable anymore for both of us, and we both knew this. We had different values and we wanted a different thing. And I was the one who initiated the separation. That was definitely one of the hardest things I've ever done. One of the craziest things too, because that is very it's a taboo. Like where I come from, people just don't get divorced. Where I come from, you stick with it. You don't get a divorce. And for women who get divorced are bad women. Like basically, from where I'm from, like the community where I come from. But I had to listen to my soul. So I made a decision, and now we are both me and my ex-husband, we're so grateful for it. We're still friends, and he has a new partner now. They've been celebrating, they celebrated their second anniversary or first anniversary. And I am also with my new life partner and with a baby. So we are so glad that we dare to free each other, and then we can continue to create the life that we each truly want. We're very different.
And what personal goal do you have for yourself?
My personal goal for now is simply stay present in my life. That includes motherhood and being a woman in the world and being entrepreneur. So being present with many different aspects of my life. I have a very big life and I'm truly grateful for it, and I want to be present for it. And it's important too because of our baby. I have a 2 years old, and when I'm with her, I want to be with her. So that is very simple for this year next, being present. And also to be brave because of, the thing that I told you in the pipeline. We are launching different programs. Like I want to reach more people, and that required courage because adding a flagship program to an existing business is a growth. Right. And there's a lot of investment that needs to be happening, like energetic investment, financial investment. We are having a bigger team. So all of that and being brave to show up for it from a place of devotion. So that is my personal goal. I don't know if it's goal, it's more like intention. But yeah, I would start with that.
And final one, where can people find you online if they want to connect with you or learn more about your programs?
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about my programs, you can go to my website. It's my name, milenanguyen.com. I keep a very active blog. We have a very beautiful workbook. We call it I think the name is Discover Your Unique Purpose, Your Soul Purpose Workbook. If you are feeling unsure, like you're feeling lost and you want to make a purposeful career transition, that would be a very great next step. The workbook has very good coaching questions for your own reflection, and it's free as well. So you can go there and download that, and then you'll be part of my mailing list where you can get the best update from me. I'm also available on Instagram and Facebook. So I'm looking forward to say hello to you if you want to come and say hi and tell me what you think about this conversation.
Thank you, Milena. Thank you for such, I would say, very empowering. What I really love is when I talk to women entrepreneurs. I think all the women entrepreneurs on my podcast have been very open. And I like that because I think one thing that's missing sometimes is this openness to share, because it is through this sharing that all of us can understand what you do. But you're also your journey. And I love entrepreneurial journeys because each one of us is different. But it is so interesting and inspiring to hear from other women who are doing something completely different from us. A good conversation can help someone, can inspire someone, or make them really think about what's going on in their lives right now. I think we would have helped someone out there. Don't you think so?
Yes, I believe so. Thank you so much, Krista, for creating this space. I'm very grateful to be part of it.
Thank you. We'll see you again. Today's episode highlights some fascinating assumptions about entrepreneurship. One, that if you do what you love, the money will follow. Milena definitely showed us that being a great yoga teacher is completely different from running a profitable yoga studio. Second, you can't get far if you don't do the inner work. The inner journey is as important as the outer journey. In my mentoring work with entrepreneurs, I've also come across entrepreneurs who aren't able to charge for what they are worth. But here's the thing, you can't sustain a business if you're not making money. I liked how Milena spoke about a gentle transition process from being an employee to becoming an entrepreneur. You don't have to take the big leap because the financial strain and stress can be real, especially if you have a family to feed. And that's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode and the aha moments and the reminders about life and entrepreneurship, and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share this with others. Post about this on social media or leave a rating and review on Spotify or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at WomenpreneurAsia. Thanks again, I appreciate you, and I will see you next Friday.